Let me see. Usually comes up on my. Oh, there we go. So hi, Sharon Lieblein.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm lovely, thank you.
Good. So first things first, how are you doing during all this? I mean, what are you doing to stay sane? And I mean, how's it going over there?
It's great out here. I'm out in LA, so it's gorgeous out, thank God.
Hmm.
I'm, just trying to live life. I'm baking bread a lot and working with actors as much as I can and,
Hmm.
just trying to stay active and
Yeah.
not watching the news.
Smart. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start with tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into casting? A little bit of your background.
I was a kid actor in New York I started when I was about 13. And I studied. I worked with a couple theater companies, and I did everything I could as a young actor in New York. Going on auditions, doing industrials, doing commercials, stuff like that. And then because that's what you did in New York at that time. There weren't a lot of series there. There were soap operas, industrials, theater. That's about it. And so I did that. And when I graduated from high school, I moved out to California and because I knew I wanted to act. So I got on the next plane and I moved out here and I started pursuing my career as an actor. And then we used to be allowed to do casting director workshops. And when I did, I met a casting director and I asked him if I could intern for him because I thought it would help me as an actress. So I did. I interned for he and his partner. And I ended up falling into casting. I realized it's more of where I wanted to be. Um, and so that's the short story. And
Okay.
that's when I started.
What was it that when you were interning made you think that you wanted to fall into casting? Look, working with the actors. I mean, what was it that made you get that bug?
Well, I will say, I'm trying to get my lighting right. The sun keeps
You look
moving.
great.
Um, I will say, I'll give you the story is basically they were working on a movie. Fern Champion and Mark Palladini were the casting directors. And I was 18 at the time. And they were working on a movie called The Mask. And there was a role in it that they thought I was perfect for, that I thought I was perfect for. And they put me on tape for, and actual tape, because tapes existed then.
Yeah.
And they were going to show it to the director. And we had already been working on the movie for a while. And they were going to show it to the director. And they said, we're just going to show him one other actress, and then all of a sudden he's going to see you and it's going to be great and it's going to be fabulous. You're going to get the role. And so we did that. And he saw it. I was outside at my desk and he comes out of the room and he was like, oh my God, you did such an amazing job. I had no idea you were an actress, and in my head, I'm like, I got this. And then he said, but we have a different kind of relationship working together. And I just don't think I can direct you. So I'm going to go with the other actress, but you did great. And I was like, huh? Right? Like, I did great. I know I did great. The casting directors that I worked for said I did great. I knew the producer, I knew the director, and I didn't get the job. I was like, okay, yeah, that's not for me.
Mm.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And then I was done. That was really, I just made that life decision that it wasn't a job. I couldn't take it. I couldn't take not getting the job when
Yeah.
everything, knowing that everything was in my corner and still not getting it, that was too tough on me.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
I
interesting.
just realized it's
And
not what I want.
but you had that realization pretty young, which is great. I mean, some people don't have that realization until further along, so that's pretty
Yeah,
great.
I was pretty lucky. I
Yeah.
was pretty lucky. And then I just continued. From being their intern, I became their assistant. And then I went on in the casting world to the associate level. And then I moved on to being a casting director under Cami Patton at Witt Thomas Studios. And I was there for several years. And we did shows like the John Larroquette Show and Brotherly Love and Rhea
Mm-hmm.
Perlman Show Pearl and a bunch of pilots.
Yeah.
So that was really a
And
great
now,
learning.
yeah, and now you did. So you were you? Was that considered independent? Because I want to get to the difference between independent
No,
casting and then when you went over to Nickelodeon
right,
and Cartoon Network.
right. So I was at Witt Thomas for several years. And then it was starting to wind down. So, the writing was kind of on the wall. And I got an offer to work with another casting director as a partner on a couple pilots. And I was like, yeah, I might as well do it. So I did that, and neither of the pilots went. But then I was on my own. So then I was in the freelance world. And that was very different because being a freelance casting director is pretty much like being an actor. You have to audition for your jobs and you have to know the producer. Like, it's all about relationships and auditioning. See if I move this way, I'm in the sun.
Oh yeah, you are in the sun. Yeah.
So it's, so it was tough. And I actually had decided, I don't like this very much. Because when you're an assistant and associate, you don't even think about that. Like, I was working nonstop. I didn't have to get my own jobs. But when you have to get your own job, it's pretty tough. So I ended up, I decided that's it. I'm going to leave. I'm moving back to my parents. I'm going to go back to school and all this stuff, until one manager said to me, just go on this interview. It's at Nickelodeon, and just go. I think you're going to love you. And I was like, okay, I'll go. I was like, I've never cast a kid before, but all right. So I went and I got the job, and that started everything. And I was there for 13 years, and I, in time, became an expert in kid casting. Mm-hmm. And it was really, I was hired on to just cast all the pilots, to be the in-house casting director for all the pilots. And the person that hired me within 6 weeks had been let go, and then I had a new boss immediately. So it was, who knew what was going on, but I ended up forging my own way there and kind of realized that they didn't have a head of casting in LA where all the series were being shot, And so I became the head of casting. Like, I created the position for myself, which was fabulous and fun. And and I was there for 13 years, and I did different things over the years. Sometimes we restructured several times over the years. At some point I was also over animation, and sometimes I was also casting and talent, relations. So it kind of moved through different positions over the years, but overall it was heading casting.
Yeah. Now, did they have a head of casting or executive casting directors in New York at the time?
There was somebody in New York at the time, and they did mostly, we kept changing it up. At some point it was T-Nick, at some point it was other stuff, but they did a lot of the animation, preschool stuff, a lot of the preschool stuff. And then as we were casting stuff out here and growing, we were like, why aren't we seeing people in New York? So then our New York office was seeing people for, our projects out here in New York as well, which was great.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. We had an amazing partnership.
And then you, as an executive, ultimately you were the vice president of casting and talent, correct? Mm-hmm. And then at Nickelodeon, and then you would have casting directors actually casting your shows. So how did that relationship work with you and the specific casting directors for your shows?
Well, it was interesting because what I loved about it and what I made like a thing of what I did is I insisted on casting at least one pilot a year. So I still really had involved. Yes. And at least one, if not more. There were times that I would hire casting directors on that would do projects with me. And there are, it was all depending on the project load at the time and the workload. And then other times where I would hire casting directors to cast the projects. Krisha Bullock would cast every Dan Schneider project, and, it was just like that. And I would oversee. So it was a lot of, when you're in that position, you're not only working on, show by show and covering shows, but you're also working with business affairs and working on talent contracts and working with talent relations and sitting with the development team and talking about big picture. What are we developing? It's a much bigger, different job than when you're working just as a freelancer on a specific project. It's just very different.
Yeah.
It's definitely very different.
Was the reason that you decided to do at least one pilot was because you missed session? You missed working with the actors? What was the reason behind wanting to do at least one?
Yeah, that's my favorite thing in the world, working with actors. So I didn't want to lose that. And I also like keeping my hands in it and knowing who the talent was. And, I thought that that was important. So and it worked for me.
Yeah.
It really worked for me. And then I would cast, we also did TV movies. So I cast a couple of those as well. But again, it was all dependent on the workload and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then, so that was 13 years at Nickelodeon. When did you go to Cartoon Network?
So then I had moved to Cartoon Network when they had decided that they wanted to build a live action division. And they had brought me over to do that with them. So I did that. And, we had some good years there and we developed some good shows. And I had walked into some reality TV that unscripted TV that they were already doing. But we had done some good shows, especially one called The Incredible Crew that Nick Cannon produced that was ahead of its time, beyond fantastic, with some great talent on it. And then after a couple of years, the head honcho in Atlanta decided that it's too expensive.
Wow.
Cartoons are cheaper. So there went my job again, and then back to the freelance world again.
Yeah.
Which is, again, such a different world.
Yeah. What is it that, like, when you're looking at, you put out a breakdown, and now this is going to what you do now, or what you, in this casting environment, you put out a breakdown. What is it that stands out to you? You get thousands of submissions. You get, you've got agents and managers pitching you. You've got actors wondering if they can come in because they met you somewhere or whatever, or they knew you along the time. What is it that, that stands out to you in the photo or in their reel online? What is it?
Look, it's so different. And it's different these days, as I'm trying to adjust my lighting. Please excuse, the sun is not cooperating. It's different these days than it was, right? Because these days, it's, God, I get for one role, like in a television movie, where I used to get 300 submissions, I now get 3,000. It's so completely different. And it's different also with kids than with adults. I mean, when I worked at Nickelodeon, we started, that's where I found Emma Roberts and Lily Collins and even Gabriel Iglesias. Put him on all that when he was 18. And, and Ariana Grande when we did Victorious, and that whole cast, Elizabeth Gilly, I think about that, but these were kids that walked in and they were, you just knew, know? And now it's a little harder. I mean, we did a movie, my former partner and I did a movie in Atlanta for Lifetime a couple of years ago where we had to hire 12-year-old girls to play the leads in the movie. And it was a brutal movie. It's Lifetime. But, so they were tough characters and these girls were the leads. And luckily we got to go to Atlanta because that's where it was shooting. We got to go to Atlanta and really got to see people, and we saw everybody. We saw everybody on tape first, and then we saw people live. And, so we got to see people live, which was great. And you could really just read it with kids. It's so much easier and truer with young actors than it is with adults,
Yeah.
So I would say but at the same time, you do have to dig. So when we get the submissions, if I get those, especially now, because I'll say for the last 2 years, at least, 2 years, that we've done all pre-reads on tape.
Yeah.
We really have. But even before now.
Yeah. I was going to say that'll segue me into this next thing of
exactly.
Because that's going to become the new normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I will say we had already been doing that. So the beauty of that for us is when we get 3,000 people submitted, we can really go through and be a little more open with who we pick to audition, right? Because it's you putting yourself on tape and sending it in to me. I can see more people. you know? Whereas if you're coming into my office, I can maybe see 50, maybe 60 a day if I'm working without lunch all the way through. And it takes up more time, right? But when I'm seeing people on tape, I can see right away, is
Right.
this the right person? Is it the right look? Before you even open your mouth, I know what they're looking for, right? And then I hear some of it and I'm like, yes or no or whatever. And right away, I can know to keep watching or to move on. I can probably get through 200 in a day, 250
Wow.
in a day. So if I'm focused, like I have to really schedule myself to watch the auditions. I schedule myself just like any other session. I make sure to schedule my day out to watch the auditions. But I can do that and I can get through so much more. So there are so many benefits for the actors in that regard because more people are seen than would normally be seen.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just going to say, so with that, I mean, you have to see it as a major benefit because I hate to say it, it's where we're going now.
Right.
It's just where we're at.
Well, I used to have that. I used to have actors tell me all the time that they would kind of, they didn't understand why they were getting a self-tape when they were in LA, the casting director was in LA and whatever. And so it's poignant that you said that because they just didn't understand it. And I actually said it to Milton the other day and I said, because we were talking about previously the pilot season before it got shut down, he was saying, yeah, it was all self-tapes. And I said, well, then a lot of people shouldn't really have a problem with where we're going because now let's talk about that. We're going into a new normal that the guidelines just aren't going to allow for seeing 50 people a day, like you said. So the self-tape is really going to be basically at the forefront of casting now, right?
Yes, and that's what everybody needs to be prepared for.
Yeah.
So it's good to know it and now get prepared for it, right? Like we have to be ready.
Yeah. And what is it being prepared for? Like, I tell them like the lighting kits are $80 on Amazon. Go get one. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but you can just set something up somewhere in your house.
Simple.
Because you may be doing a handful a week or whatever you want to get set up.
Yes. I mean, that's all you need. Order from Amazon, a lighting kit, a backdrop. If your sound isn't great on your phone or your iPad or whatever you're using, get sound. Get a mic of some kind. Other than that, you do not need to spend money. You should have a computer, I hope, or something you can edit on. But other than that, you don't need to spend money to audition. I know people are like, oh, I need to go to this fancy place to shoot me. And
no. And you get to do it over and over and over again. You get to do it as many times as you want.
That's the thing. I mean, you got to see the positive of it. Because can you imagine if you pay to go put yourself on tape and now I get it as the casting director? I'm like, oh, I like that. But I have some notes. Let me have them do it again. So now I'm going to give you notes and you have to do it again. You're going to go pay again?
Right.
No. And casting directors are aware and will be more aware as we move into this new norm that you're doing it at home and that you might not have another actor there to read with you, or you might have to have somebody read to you over FaceTime or a phone or whatever. People get that. It's tough, but we have to see beyond that. As long as you're preparing for your audition, you do the work that needs to be done, you build your character, you have you're on tape, so you don't want to be holding a page. So it's really hard. You have to have your lines down, and if anything, hold the paper down so we don't see it and it doesn't get in your way. But that's what you need to do. And that's where you need to... Oh, I'm too white. I'm going to move this light. I'm moving around. Let's see. I'm going to find another zone to keep us happy. But I read an article the other day and it was an actress that works a lot, an adult actress, was like, oh, I go to this place to shoot my auditions and they cut it for me. They edit it for me. It's fabulous. And I'm sitting there going, why? Why are you spending all this money? I'm not expecting anything fancy. All I want is for an actor to follow the directions we give on how to upload, how to, do the slate, and then send it in.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're right, or if you're close to right, I might give you notes to do it again.
And don't you think it allows for people anywhere now sort of in the country? I mean, you're going to have to, obviously, if it's a smaller role, which also are going to be kind of eliminated essentially from productions, but it allows for, you know, especially series regular roles or major guest stars. It allows for somebody in Florida. It allows for somebody in Chicago, or these places that are not necessarily hold sessions all the time.
Absolutely. And the reality is no reason to move out here then.
Right.
Like,
it's
so
expensive.
that's yeah. Right? I mean, that's just a whole other savings, you know?
Yep.
And people, look, there are going to be the roles that are local hires. There just are. And no, we're not going to bring you in from Florida to shoot something in LA. And we're not going to bring you from LA to shoot something in Atlanta.
Right.
Like, that's just budgetary, you know, and especially now I would have to think, whereas before we would let somebody, maybe if they say their uncle lives in Atlanta and they live with them and they have an address, we would let it pass. But now that means an actor getting on a plane, like it's just adding to potential.
Well, I read the article, I don't know if it's Deadline or Variety, that said they're going to almost eliminate that because they don't have that quarantine effect. Exactly. They don't have that. Yeah, they can't control it as much. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's, you know, so that's something we're going to have to learn about in the new normal. I think the most important thing is that producers are going to want to figure out and spend their money on and spend their time on is figuring out how to shoot something. So when it comes to auditions, they're not going to want to put anybody in harm's way.
Right.
So in addition to being online for pre-reads, I would be prepared to be online for producer and director sessions as well. And it's all going to be figured out via Zoom or via other programs that are being built right now. I know several of them are, to be able to have clean, good auditions that can be taped while you're auditioning, that a director can give direction. So I know that's all going on. So
I got Danielle Harris. I had done I don't know if I did a pre-read session or something, not a pre-read session with her, but they loved Danielle Harris, and I had them do, and this was years ago, and I had them do a Skype, and that's how she got the role. You know, because the director wasn't there. He was on location scouting or whatever, you know.
Look, I'll tell you something funny. On the last TV movie we did, we had an actor, we were in Atlanta and we couldn't find a role in Atlanta and we had to get somebody in New York and we had the actor do it via Skype. And the reality is, why didn't we know about Zoom? But we had the actor do it via Skype and that's just how it worked and we figured it out.
Right.
And that was it. So yes, it was.
I think we might be able to do chemistry reads on Zoom too, because if you can get a couple people in there, you might be able to do it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Look, we're all going to figure it out. It's definitely a new normal, but you do have to get really strong at auditioning on tape. At the end of the day, that's what's important, and that's what you have to be prepared with. And even if it's a live, going on live with a casting director or director, you still need your backdrop, you still need your lighting, you still need your good mic. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That you have to be prepared with.
And not being too comfortable at home, not slouching, stand up, like do your, you know, like act as if you're in the room.
Exactly. I mean, that is your audition space. And you have to keep it your audition space. That's not where you throw dirty clothes. That's not where you put other stuff. That's your audition space.
Have you seen the newscasters that have been caught with like, with their no pants on or something naked in the background?
It's horrible.
I'm like, you guys, you know you're live. You know that this is happening.
Yes. So when you are doing things like that, you should know that, look, this is your space. This is your workspace. And it'll make you feel more comfortable as well, I think.
We got some questions here. So we've got Anthony Mancini, KJ, Savannah Salisbury, and Robin Acevedo. They've all kind of asked the same question. What advice, and it's within years, what advice would you give to a 10 to 12-year-old boy or girl looking to get on Nickelodeon or looking to start auditioning?
Well, I will say right now there's a Nickelodeon open call. So if you haven't submitted to that, you should Google it. You should find it. Everyone's doing it. So you should absolutely submit yourself for the Nickelodeon open call. That's the first step. In general, otherwise, you need a manager, you need an agent, you need a representative to get you in for the specific auditions on the network.
Mm-hmm.
That network, Disney, everything, Netflix. There's not just one place for kids anymore.
Right.
It used to
Netflix
be for
is
the
doing great
longest
things for
time.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah, for the longest time it was Disney and Nickelodeon, and that's it. And now it's exploding. I
Mm-hmm.
do, because I also, in addition to casting, when I'm not casting like now, I also am an audition coach, and I know that I've been coaching a lot of people on that. So I know like lots of people are doing it, and it's a fun, great audition, and it's a great thing for you to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Because as far as auditioning goes, you also have to remember that that is the job of an actor. It's to audition. When you book a role, that's like the icing on the cake. But your job, day in, day out, as an actor, is to audition.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have to love it. You have
Yeah.
to find the joy in doing it. And so there's a lot of, when we talk about being prepared for an audition, there's so much that goes into being prepared. you
Yeah.
know and there's so many different layers of it. It's not just getting the lines down, because everybody gets the lines down. If you can't even get the lines down, look into yourself. This might not be the job for you. But that's the basics, is getting the lines down.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, really build your character, know where you're going in a scene, know who you're talking to, what's the relationship with the person you're talking to. There are so many different levels. And then on the flip side of it, really what we see on a great audition is you come in and do great, or you go on tape and do great when you're confident. And we can
Mm-hmm.
feel that confidence. And
Yep.
part of feeling that confidence is having confidence in yourself in general, and feeling good about yourself, and
Yeah.
knowing yourself, and looking in the mirror and knowing who you are right on that day, and loving yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling great about yourself, because that adds to your audition. It's so different. I remember when I was a kid actor, I was always a little chubby, or I was a little whatever. I was not a beauty,
The
but
character.
I was the character girl. But had I seen that, it would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I'm the leading lady.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made as an actor. I should have been comfortable with myself right where I was, right at that time. Not if I lost 10 pounds 6 months from now. Right now, as I'm looking in the mirror, I should have just felt great
Yeah.
with who I was.
Did you have anybody guiding you and telling you that, or no? Okay. Because I would
No, it
say,
was so different.
yeah. When I was managing, I was very sort of not like, look, not stay in your lane kind of thing, but look, let's focus on this for now, and then ultimately, when you build your resume, and you can try different things or whatever, but know your type, and let's go after those things first. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, when I was doing it, when I was a kid, I lived in Queens. I took classes in Manhattan. I was between 13 and 16, 17.
Did
And
you
I
talk
would,
like you had marbles in your mouth?
it wasn't great. I look back at some stuff now, and it was bad. It was really bad.
Well, I have the
But,
jersey, so
ay, ay, ay. But I will say that, my parents, God bless them, they were like, you could do it, but we're not doing anything. Like, this isn't our world. You can get we'll pay for classes, and that's it. So I got on a subway. I went to the city. I took classes, but they were adult classes. There weren't classes for kids when I was doing it, at least that I knew of. And the people that were sending me out on auditions didn't really know me as well as they should have. And again, these are all things I wish I knew. Like,
right.
you have to know your manager. I was being sent out on Latino commercials, and I was like, because I have dark hair, I don't speak Spanish.
Right.
But like, it's like, but they were sending me out on wrong things. And then, I mean,
Yeah.
some things they sent me out on were good and were right. And I got those jobs, and that was great. But you have to really, but what it comes back to is, it's my business,
Mm-hmm.
and I should have known, and I should have cared more. And I should have, when I went in on auditions, I should have, look, you have resources now that I didn't have. You have IMBD Pro, which I did not have, right? You could look in, I had gone in on a movie when I was younger, and it was a remake of an old movie. I was like, okay, I don't know what that old movie is. And I should have studied. I should have known what the old movie was. I should have known what the character was that I was going in for. It would have helped me so much. I was clueless.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to break down a set of sides and really look. Because you have to remember, when you're auditioning, when you're doing, the same sides that everyone else is doing, what are you doing to make it special?
Right.
What are you doing that's going to have you stand out from the rest when you have to say the exact same words as everyone else?
Right.
I'll tell you from the start, you have to do your homework. I always say this, like if I see 100 people for a role, I can promise you that 70 of them are not prepared.
Right.
And those are people with managers and agents. Just because they don't do the work. So right away, if you do the hard work, you are going to rise to the top.
Yeah.
And at the very least, even if you're wrong for a role, I'll say, not right for the role, but nice actor. I should remember that actor.
Yeah.
And that's something you want.
And that's called booking the room,
Correct, right.
Yeah,
yeah, because you want me to remember you.
Yeah. And that's what drives me nuts too. And it drove me nuts in casting, drove me nuts. And I would never allow it to happen in management because you have so many resources. Like you said, back then you didn't. Now you have YouTube, you have Google, you have IMDb Pro, you have all of this stuff. So there should be no reason, even a pilot. So, and for those of you who don't know what a pilot is, Sharon, I'll let you explain it. And then I want to explain, like, even with that though, you could see the producers and the directors, so you can still get a sense of what they've done in the past. Yeah.
Yes.
What is a pilot?
When you're doing a pilot, well, there used to be pilot season. That has pretty much dried up now. But a pilot is when you do a test show for a potential new series. So lots of pilots are made, shockingly. Lots of money is spent. Lots of development money is spent to make these test shows. And then whatever network or streamer or whatever paid for that then decides whether to make them a series or not. So what Joe was alluding to is even if you get a pilot script, so it's the first script of a series, so you have nothing to study background-wise of the characters and of the show, you can still look at your breakdown, see who the director is, what kind of projects does this director direct, look who the writers are, what are the past shows they've written, what kind of shows do they write, what kind of comedy do they do, what kind of drama do they do, all of that kind of stuff. Look at the casting directors, what kind of stuff did they cast? You should know every single bit of background that you can. For example, I see chats here on the side on the public chat. What have you cast? What Nickelodeon project have you cast? Don't ask me those questions.
Right.
That's a waste of my time because guess what? You can go to IMDb Pro and you can get every single answer. Those are the kinds of things.
You see the one. So Nathan Ramos, no, and we're not attacking you, I promise, but it's not necessarily the first episode of a show because it could be reshot, it could be recast, it could be, so it's not necessarily, like she said, it is the test to get put in front of the network and the suits and see if they want to actually ultimately make the series.
Yes, and sometimes, especially these days, because pilots cost so much money, sometimes they do pilot presentations. So that means from the very beginning, that it's not going to be on the air. It's not going to hit the air. They're not putting enough money into it for that. They're just trying to get enough people around and to get a cast that could work to tell their story, just to give the network an idea of what it would be were it fully produced. So that's been happening a lot as well, just to save money.
Yeah, makes sense because, like you said, there's a lot of money that it just in pilot season as a whole. When we used to do it, it was like the millions and millions and millions of dollars that was spent on it, and then ultimately, not 80% of it was scrapped.
Yes, no, absolutely, and it's funny because pilot season. Look, for the longest time, we only had ABC, NBC, CBS. Then Fox came in. And then CW came in, networks,
Right.
And so for the longest time, it was truly everybody knew starting in January, if you were going to come out here at all, be out here for pilot season, January, February, March, little of April, and then you're done. Pilot season's done. That has so been turned on its behind because now with all the streamers, all the cable networks, everybody's doing pilots all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not about a pilot season. And
Right.
what's going to happen is that you're going to do your auditions at this point on tape or on, the internet, however you do it. I always use the word tape, even though it's not tape anymore. But yeah,
you can't take it out and send it to anybody
oh
anymore.
my God, no. But you're going to do it, online, and you're going to send it in. And then if they need to read with you, it's going to be via Zoom or via whatever, program they're using. And I have to believe, at least for the next however long, it's going to be like that with producers and directors too. And then you're going to have to figure that out, for testing. It's just going to have to be, look, we heard
with the punches. Yeah.
Huh?
And they're just gonna have to roll with the punches.
Yes.
Like you said, get a good internet connection, backdrop lighting, and you're good. Yeah.
That's it. It's the most important thing. And to be clear, and I know that you're doing it, Joe, that you're teaching and you're doing classes, right? During this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most important thing. When we talk about being prepared, you have to be taking classes all the time. It's funny because I coach for auditions, but I'm not an acting teacher. And any client that I coach, I also tell them you should be in an acting class. It should be an ongoing thing, because it's like any sport or game or any, if you're a dancer, if you're whatever, you have to be practicing constantly so that when that time comes for you to play in the game, you're ready, and that's so super important. Because those are the tools that you learn. Whenever anybody says to me, "Oh, I'm a natural, I don't have to." Come on.
No.
Like, really? I don't care how natural you are.
There's also technical stuff and verbiage and things that you can learn. Yes.
Absolutely. There are just things that you need in your toolbox. And you only get that from classes. And you learn from the other people you work with, whether they're a better player than you or not. You learn, and you're always learning. You're learning from watching, you're learning from participating. Classes are important. They just are. So when you say during this downtime, what should I be doing to prepare? Keep doing classes. Keep doing that, because I will tell you, when things open up, when the industry, look, there are some auditions going on now, but when things really open up, it's going to open up big, and it's going to open up all at once. So you've got to be so on top of your game, and so that means, like when I was talking about looking in the mirror, loving yourself, loving who you are right now, it means taking care of yourself right now. It's so easy for us to get lazy right now, but, and I even talked with my daughter's not an actress, but I talked to her about this the other day, and, we both, like, even though like she's school online, and then she just kind of is like bummed out the rest of the day because she's not hanging with friends or whatever. I said, that's it. Well, change your attitude and change your day, and make a time for yourself to exercise after school every day, and do, take an online class of something fun, like playing guitar or whatever, like, fill in your day in a better way to keep you more productive and to keep you in a good place, right? Because what we don't want to be gaining that COVID-19, 20, 30, 40. Yeah. So, we don't want to be gaining all that weight. We don't want our faces to break out because we're eating crappy food. And I say this, it ain't just you. I'm talking to myself too. And so, we all have to be doing that at the same time, because when we get back to work, we are going to be back.
Right.
And we have to be
guns
in
blazing. Yeah.
Yes. And it's so important. It's so important for you.
And what they always fail to realize is that, and if you don't do it, there's 100 or 1,000 others right behind you that are doing it.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, my daughter did it when she was younger. She was an actress, trying to be an actress, took classes, had an agent. And then it came to a time where she wasn't working for her auditions. She was just memorizing, and then would go in and just do it. And I said to her, you know what? That's not okay. Like, your agent is getting you a shot. That could have been somebody else's shot that worked a lot harder. And that's when we decided that she was done. and if she wanted to come back when she wanted to work for it, she could, because there are so many people out there that are going to work hard and that are going to get it.
It's true.
And that are going to
Well,
take
it's the
direction.
same thing with, like, you mentioned the sports. It's the same thing if you're practicing all week with a coach. The coach is going to see which ones are actually, hitting fly balls at home with their dad or their mom, or they're actually see who is putting in the actual effort. And the ones that are just sort of showing up to pass the time, that's not who they want to work with, and that's not who there's going to be starting in the game on Saturday.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's in anything. Look, I remember when I was a young kid and I was playing piano, like maybe I was 10 or whatever, and I would have a piano teacher come to the house every week, and I was supposed to be practicing every day in between, right? Well, I didn't. I was lazy and I didn't. And like a day before, the night before she'd come, I'd like practice. And then I would do it for the teacher. And I just remember once she was like, wow, that was really good. And I remember saying to my mom afterwards, imagine if I practiced.
Right.
It would have been so good. Like, and it's like, ugh, why do you miss these moments? Like, it's so important. Look, it's easy right now during this time to get lazy. It just is. And so I think now is the time to build good habits. Right. It's a really good time when we're at home, when we can really take the time and focus and build good habits, because then when we get back into the rat race, we will have those habits ready and locked, and we will have been working on ourselves. And it's really important.
Yeah, I agree. There's a few good questions. Bella Muncie's mom said, she's been doing, which is pretty prevalent right now, a lot of animation and voiceover stuff, because that's what can be going on right now. Is there anything that, any advice you can give for that and recording at home and or apps or anything?
I'm not up on all the apps with that.
I know anyone that wants to know those, you can message me. I know those because EG was just on and she does a lot of that.
Good. Yeah. Good. But I will tell you again, it's the same kind of work. Mm-hmm. You still have to prepare for those roles, and you still have to send in your best work. When you're taping yourself, just audio or visual, never send in something that makes you go, it's okay.
Right.
Because if that's how you feel about it, I'm not going to like it.
Right.
I can tell you, you've got to look or listen to your stuff and feel like, wow, I hit it out of the park. Because if not, do it again.
And again.
Yeah. Yep. Until you feel like, wow, that was great work. I'm proud of myself. Then you send it in.
I just want to piggyback on that, though. I actually have a trick. And Octavia Spencer taught me this years ago. I hired her at a movie that I produced, and she said she had learned this from her acting teacher way in the beginning. And this can work on your apps if you're recording, or even if you're doing a video. Record yourself or do your self-tape or whatever it is, right? Put it somewhere and then put it behind a door, close the door, and have someone that you know or you love play it, walk by and listen to it and be like, who are they talking to in there? If they think that you're just having a real conversation, then you're on the right track. But if you sound like you're doing a scene or you sound like you're putting it on, then it's not really working. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And she had said that to me because an acting teacher said that to her, and she said it clicked for her.
And that could work for you. That could absolutely work for you. And it's sometimes a parent isn't the best person to look at it.
True.
Sometimes you have to send it to a friend or a manager or something, but you should at least know in your gut if that's the best you can give.
Right.
If you fumble on a word, why would you send it?
Yeah.
Why? Send it again.
Right.
Can you understand everything you're saying? I will say that is the biggest thing with young actors, mumbling. There's so many young actors that swallow their words, and I miss a lot of them. Yeah. And so make sure you can truly close your eyes and understand every single word that's being said.
Yeah.
It's so super important.
Articulate. Yep.
And don't do it weirdly, because there are some people that do it too much, and then it's like it stands out. I mean, the biggest thing when I'm watching an audition on tape is I want to see your face. I want to see your eyes. There are so many people that will talk to another person in the room or, in the scene and be talking like this. What am I seeing? Hello? Like, if
Right.
I'm not seeing your eyes and seeing your face when you're talking, I'm missing it.
Right. You're
If
missing
there's
the
a
chemistry. Yeah.
Yes, it's the same thing with headshots. Your eyes are the most important things in a headshot. They
Mm-hmm.
have to be clear. They have to show me who you are. That is truly the most important thing. And in a scene, don't be looking to the side. I can't tell you how many times I watch auditions and go, "Oh, turn to me. Let me,"
Right.
like they're going to hear me on the screen. But like I'm begging and wishing that you would actually look at me so I can see your eyes.
You're like
I miss
turning
half.
your like.
I am. I turn my TV or my monitor and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll see them. No,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating. There's never a time on tape or in a room for casting that you should be looking somewhere else and talking.
Right.
Even if there is direction that says she turns away, fine, turn away, then turn back.
Right.
Especially if you have a line. I mean, this is like common sense stuff, but I cannot tell you. And this is not just to kids. This is adult actors as well. This is really, it happens.
That reminds me of something. I know I like listen to interviews and I learn a lot from other like older actors or just actors that do interviews. And Oprah Winfrey said on The Color Purple, she did her very first line. She said, "How you doing, Miss Seeley?" And she said it right to the camera. And Steven Spielberg said, "Cut, cut, cut. What are you doing? Miss Seeley's over there. You got to look at her." Yeah.
Well, and let's remember that, right? You never look into the screen, into the lens,
right,
for anything when you're putting yourself on tape, unless it's your slate,
yeah,
and a hosting audition or a commercial audition. Those are the only times you look directly in the lens. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you pick an eye line that's right to the left or right to the left of the right or the left of the lens. And if your eye line changes within the scene to somebody that's further away, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Shift your eye line. I'm still looking at you.
Yeah.
But I'm shifting my eye line. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, but don't turn your head to look at somebody. If you go, "Oh my God, it's all the way over there," and you turn backwards to look at over there, that doesn't make sense either. There. It's in front of you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So just remember that I am watching you. I am looking at you. I want to see you. And be smart about what you're wearing in an audition. Do not overcomplicate things. Mm-hmm. Keep it simple. Especially for kids, it's the easiest. T-shirt and jeans for the most part. Sometimes if it's a cute little dress for a girl, if it's a running jacket for a guy, if it doesn't have a lot going on, depending on the audition, that's fine. But other than that, keep it simple. No big jewelry.
No, this wouldn't work.
Oh, no jewelry, no makeup. Oh my God. Like, no. When you're kids. When you're older, you might put a little lip on. You might put a little blush on, but still keep it pretty clean.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, I'm hiring an actor. I'm not hiring a makeup artist or a hairdresser or anything. Just show me your raw self. Get your hair out of your face. Because again, I want to see your face. Clean up. You should have audition clothes. Whether you're going into an audition or you're doing it on tape, you should have a couple of t-shirts, a couple of shirts that you'll only wear when you're auditioning.
Right.
So that you don't have to worry, oh, are they in the wash? What happened? Was it ironed? They're ready. They're hanging in the closet. And you only use them for auditions. And if you do in the future get to go to an audition again, they should be ready for you to grab and go, for a parent to grab and go. Like easy. But that, again, it's part of your business. That's part of what you have to have ready to go. Being prepared. It all comes back to that word. So that when you say being prepared, when I say it's not an easy, just a one-stop shop word, no, there are so many different levels and layers to being prepared. But that's your job.
Right. Yeah. It's always so true. Like even when I used to do workshops and stuff, I did one with Jenny Lair, who works with Cammie Patton. You mentioned Cammie earlier, but we did one and she said, and we both said it almost at the same time because the actor like got up on the thing. We said, "Do you have any questions?" And the girl said she's like, "Oh yeah, how do you want me to do it?" And we were like, "No, We want you to do your job. We're doing our job by sitting here and watching you. We want you to do your job and come in prepared, even though it's only 15 minutes out in the hallway or whatever it is for a workshop. But like, that's what we want, you know? It's so frustrating that
there are things, look,
their job to come in prepared. Yeah.
Yes. And the reality is, you know, there are questions you can ask. Look, when you're putting yourself on tape, you're not going to have a lot of chance to ask questions. If there's something super specific that you just can't figure out, ask your agent or manager to find out that answer. But otherwise, you're just going to have to make some strong choices. And you might make the wrong choices. But if you make a strong choice, and I see that you're a smart thinking actor, and you're right for the role, then I will give you another shot, and I will give you direction. You know, and if you get the chance to work with a casting director one-on-one, even if it's on Zoom, and we ask you, do you have any questions? If you do, be prepared with them. I always tell actors to write their questions on the top page of their sides, right in front of them, because you are always going to get nervous when you're talking to a casting director. And I always say, do you have any questions? And then actors go, no, I think I'm good.
Right.
When they had 1,000 questions, but they were too nervous to ask or too nervous to remember. So if you have questions, write them down on your page that's going to be right in front of you.
Yeah. And don't ask a question and then not like get the answer and then from the casting director not do it or not take the note.
That drives me crazy. So that's what I was just going to say. Never do that. If you're going to ask the question, you better be ready to incorporate the answer.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. You know, there's a question, a producer friend of mine who used to be an actor said he asked every time he would audition. And it was, what have you not seen yet? What are other actors not doing for you in this role? What do you want to see that they're not doing for you? And that's a smart question to ask. You know, but you should always, what's going to happen, be smart when you ask the question, because what's going to happen is I'm going to throw you off your game. You know, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to give you an answer that you were so not prepared for. And then it's going to be like, oh, you know, so most importantly, a lot of times just jump in and do what you prepared. Let me see the work, you know. But the thing about questions, like what I can't also stand is after somebody's auditioned, when I say, you know what, I want you to try it with a little of this. And then the actor says, oh, I was going to ask you that. Yeah, but you just did your audition.
You have the opportunity, and especially if we're saying, do you have any, most of the time, every single casting director says, do you have any questions before you start?
Yes. So really, truly be prepared. It's so important. And it's your moment. It's your moment, your audition time. If you do get to be in front of a casting director, you know, even on screen, if you're live with them, it's your time. Use it well, use it smartly, you know, because it's your moment. So ask the questions you need to ask. Learn when to answer. You know, if somebody's chatting with you, sometimes I'm really chatty at an audition. Sometimes I'm not at all. But if I'm chatting with you, chat. You know, don't give me one-word answers like yes, no. Give me a full sentence. I don't need a 10-page story, but give me a full sentence. Answer my questions, you know, because it's also a time for me to get to know you. If that's something I want to do, you know. So you have to learn to go with that flow. But other times I'm just busy. And I just say, okay, let's go. You ready? Any questions? Nope. Okay, great. Let's go.
Well, so that's if you're... when you ask especially a kid, you ask them, a lot of times I've seen with directors when I've cast kids, like I've cast Bobby Coleman to be Minnie Driver's son, and we saw 500 boys for that role. And the director, I mean, it's literally, it took forever because the director wanted to ask every kid questions, right? Because they want to know, like you said, if they actually have a personality. But this is what always gets me, and I'm sure you can attest to it, is, you know, what else do you like? What do you like to do for fun? I like to act. I like to dance. And it's like programmed robot. No, that's not what we want to see.
No, the reason we're asking you questions is to see who you are, you know, and especially with young people. Look, it's not going to happen necessarily in the pre-read all the time. But if you're already coming back, if now you're in front of a director or producer, they're going to want to get to know you. They're going to ask you questions, sometimes just to see how you react. You know, and sometimes to get to know you more. And so you have to just be ready and be comfortable, to do that. It's part of the audition. Your entire time in the room, truly from the waiting room into the room, from the moment you walk into the office, that's your audition.
Yeah, it's true.
And you have to be prepared with that. The way you behave in a waiting room, super important. All a parent should be doing is reading a book or listening to something on your phone or whatever. All a kid should be doing is focusing on their audition. That's all you do in a waiting room. You don't talk to anybody else. That's if you ever get into a waiting room again.
Right.
But it's the same thing on a set. I've worked on projects that have lots of young people on sets, and the parents end up becoming this whole, friends, not friends, like it becomes its own little society. It's not your job to do that. You're on a set to take care of your kid. That's the reason you're there. It's not social haha time for you. Not to say you shouldn't talk to people, but remember why you're there. That's super important for parents. And again, going back to if you're putting yourself on tape for an audition, when it comes to your slate, that might be your only moment to show any personality. Do not slate in character, right? Slate as yourself.
Right.
That's what I want to see. Don't go doing crazy things, but slate as yourself. Give me a smile.
Yeah.
Know that there's a human in there.
I had an adult say one time to me in a class, or I don't remember what it was, and said, "Do you like people to come in character?" And I said, "Well, not if you're playing a serial killer. Like I want to see, like you said, I want to see that you're a good person." Because the other thing too is, like you just mentioned, which I think is so important, is that your audition does start in the waiting room. It starts in the parking lot. It starts wherever. It's because if we see that you're that cuckoo mom, or we see that you're that cuckoo dad, or we see that your kid's just running around the lobby and not really preparing, that's a red flag too, because that will cost the production money ultimately. I don't care if you're the best actor or not, right? And have you ever seen stuff like that in your when we were in waiting rooms and we were in live? Have you seen stuff like that and then ultimately said, we got to delete this kid from the tape or whatever?
We've done it.
Yeah.
Oh, we've done it. And then it's funny, I was just talking to an old producer of mine the other day and remembering when we had to recast somebody from a series because her mom was getting in the way.
Yep.
So that's happened too.
I had to do it on a movie that we shot in New Mexico, and the kid, he was 9 years old, a boy, and he was shooting for 6 weeks on a movie in New Mexico. They flew out there 3 days later. The producers called me and they said, "Joe, you got to go with," and they had the two other names that were below the other boy, and they said, "We got to go with this person, this person." I said, what's going on? It was because the mom was going nuts on set and forgot the reason she was there was to actually just support her kid. And a lot of these, we'll do agents of, on these and stuff, and they always say, and I'm sure you could say this too, because you do coach for auditions, but that it's your chauffeur, essentially. You're there to get the lighting right. You're there to help maybe read with them, but don't be their acting coach. Don't be the casting director. Don't be their agent. Don't be their manager,
Just be the parent. That is your job, and it's a super important one. Right. You are there to look after the well-being of your child. That is your job at home and at work. So if your kid gets an audition and they're like, I don't really want to do it, I'm not in the mood, listen to that. Yeah,
they're honest.
Listen to that. And yes, even if you've spent all this money on classes and you've spent the money on backdrop and if your kid is not feeling it, listen to them. And maybe it's time to move on to something else.
Right.
Because like Joe said earlier, there are 100 other kids that are feeling it. That are going to work 10 times harder and get the job.
And we can see it. You can see it when they come in to read for you. You could see it.
Absolutely. You read it immediately, especially on a young actor, you read it. Yeah. And the reality is, especially for young actors, they don't need to be doing this. They're not paying the bills. Right. So the only reason they're doing it is because they love it. And because they want to be doing it and don't want to play baseball and they don't want to do ballet. They want to act and that's what they want to do. So with that, if they're saying they don't want to do it, listen.
Yeah.
It's
So
important.
I think that's a great way to end, but just one last thing we'll put out there because this has been awesome. Thank you so much, my friend Sharon. Just the last minute words of advice. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this a long time. I mean, last minute words of advice for the parents, because most of these are the parents on here on Facebook.
Right. Oh, and also I do want to say even before last minute, you feel free to follow me on Instagram because
What's your Instagram?
Shazza, Shazza Lieb, Lieb, Shazza Lieb.
Okay. I'll type it right now.
Yeah, type it in so they have. My last words of I mean I could talk forever, but
do it again. SHAZZ
ALIEB.
Okay, got it.
My last words of advice are just be good to your kids. Don't add extra stress onto the kids. I think it's important for a young actor. It's important for any actor to do their audition, do their best, go in, give 110%, then walk out and just move on, right? Mm-hmm. Like that audition is done. So I see a lot of times the parents are like, how'd you do? Did you do okay? How'd you feel? Did you do? That's not it. How'd you feel is good. Mm-hmm. Do you feel great? Great. Moving on. That's it. Don't put any extra pressure on them because that's not what they need right at that moment. And once that audition's over, there's no changing anything.
Right.
So that's it. So just let them be kids.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Good. Well, I think you're amazing. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thanks for getting on here. And I know that the parents really appreciate it. They give me a feedback anyway. Oh, Joshi's amazing. I'm sure I'm already getting text messages.
Aww,
so I appreciate it. Stay safe, my friend.
Thank you. You too. Good to see you.
You too. Mwah.
Mwah. Bye-bye.
All right. Here.